Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today we're going to talk more about role-playing games. I had somebody in the comments in the last video say, Greg, could you talk more about role-playing games? And I've got another one that I can talk about the first time. Well, maybe not the... Well, maybe it was the first time. The hero system is one that I use a lot, and... that we played a lot. We rather like how open-ended it was, but it took a little while to get used to actually playing the game and to understand how things went. That said, I'll get to that. I also wanted to talk, speaking of gaming, I still keep up with Gamergate as it goes along. It's kind of... it's fallen in terms of... the pitch and... so forth. It's fallen to a lower pitch. It's more still in the background of the gaming world. You still hear people talking about it on 4chan every now and then. You see posts on it. But Law and Order is about to make an episode about Gamergate, wherein a female developer makes a game, and because she is a woman, she will be attacked at a gaming convention. And as the description goes, the police will have to level up to protect this female developer from the horrible misogynist gaming community. So, you know, going to be real great, going to encourage a whole lot of women to get involved in the hobby, you know. Women are going to see that and they're going to think, wow, gaming looks like a lot of fun. If I am a woman, then everyone will just automatically hate me. Real positive message. Really thrilled about that. You know, being a gaming enthusiast myself. The whole thing is kind of a circus, really. I mean, when I did my video on it, I tried to be sort of... I tried to speak to a broad audience. I tried not to really implicate anyone and be somewhat neutral. But if I can be honest, and don't get me wrong, because there's a lot of people in Gamergate who got really into like conspiracy stuff, conspiratorial stuff, and they've been talking about like misogyny and anti-feminism in Gamergate so much that at this point I believe that there really are probably a lot of people who are specifically, you know, that are specifically joined for that reason. Like they wanna fight back their ideological opponents in the feminist circles, who are part of Gamergate now. But all that said, I think the real fools, the real clowns in this whole circus are probably the game journalists that are being criticized. Not necessarily whether or not you like the game journal ethics angle or anything like that, whatever you feel about that. From what I've been reading about the actual results of this thing, I don't see that pro-Gamergate or anti-Gamergate are really making much headway against each other. It's just an ideological clash. They really don't give a crap what the other... Like nobody's earning any converts, really. But it looks like it's doing a lot of damage to the industry, anyway. I mean, one thing that I've been seeing is some analysis that, like, ad revenue for all gaming sites, not just ones that were supporting or against Gamergate, all gaming websites are going to be going down because gaming has gotten to be a less stable, like it's just one of these things. Like, imagine that there was a bass fishing magazine, you know, like people just, like, they fish for bass, it's for bass fishing enthusiasts, and then one day, like, the bass fishing magazine has, like, Andrea Dworkin write some kind of article about how, you know, the masculine culture of bass fishing is, like, toxic and needs to change, and then you had a bunch of bass fishing articles that were talking about, like, bass fishermen are dead, bass fishermen are over, you know, bass fishermen don't have to be the demographic that bass fishing stores cater to anymore. We can make bass fishing equipment in pink, you know. Or not necessarily pink, that would be sexist, but I mean, like, when you start to get into this, it's like, what do you even... It's just like the magazines would have lost their minds, because when you start to get into, like, demographics, like what do people like and what do people don't like you say, like, how would you apply video games to appeal specifically to women? And this is a thing that in business they ask themselves a lot. They want to know, like, how could we sell to a broader audience? You know, it's a serious consideration in business. Any video game developer would like to do this. You see this a lot where you get games that they try to casualize them more so that more people can get into them. Not necessarily women, but just anybody. The bigger the audience, the more the game sells, the more the game is worth. This is a positive thing. So it's strange to have to have seen all the journal articles that came out at the beginning of that were like, gamers are dead, you don't have to cater to this demographic. And with the notion that, like, well, so, you know, you could cater to women, and or you could cater to I don't know, games were already being casualized. They were already trying to appeal to broader demographics. So it's weird to see those articles, because those articles didn't really speak to the game developers. The game developers were already trying to broaden their audience. They were already trying to reach out to more people. so those articles weren't really speaking to the game developers. They were really more directed, I don't know who, I guess for the journalists themselves were writing it just so that they could say, like, haha, I figured this out. But those all came out after a study that was released that revealed that a broad portion of gamers are women now, with the caveat that those gaming women, most of them play mobile games, you know, like on their phones or whatever, so like Angry Birds, things like that. And of course, mobile games are their own genre. They're their own set of games. But they may have jumped the gun a little bit on declaring that male gamers no longer dominated certain, you know, like the male demographic still dominates like RTS games, which RTS is sort of sadly a dying genre. It's sad because it's my favorite genre. Shooters, stuff like that. I don't know. Just weird. But in retrospect, though, like I say, the entire thing, the end of it all. The reason why I feel like the journalists are the real clowns in this whole thing is because although they produced a lot of traffic with all these articles, the blowback and controversy, from what I'm reading, is causing ad revenue to drop, and it's making advertisers more nervous. They don't really want to be associated with it as much, or they don't want to pay as much to be on these journal websites. And January is always a sour month for ad revenue in any media market. So there were some journalists that got kind of laid off, and also a lot of journalists are freelance. So you're going to see fewer people, you know, less freelance, fewer freelance names popping up because they're private contractors and they don't have to be hired consistently. They don't get like a salary or anything. But yeah, so that's going on in that whole little world of politics. They mostly just kind of shot themselves in the foot. The industry just being kind of shot in the foot by this whole thing. Not really very sensible, just like really crappy PR job on that. Like I said, I know it's just weird. Like I said, just you imagine like, oh sure, we should have Andrea Dworkin come and write an article on bass fishing. That'd be great. Like, I really love Andrea Dworkin. I bet everyone else will agree with her. And then, I don't know, bass fishermen didn't really agree with. They didn't jive super well with that. That wasn't a real great. Didn't appeal as broadly as they assumed it would. Maybe they just thought that Andrea Dworkin's message was more important than the demographic that they're supposed to be selling their magazine to. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so that, but anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about role-playing stuff. Just, like I said, news, I was just, this was something I was reading about today. So, thought I would talk about it, just get it off of my mind as far as that politics, weird politics. I mean, like I say, the reason why I say I don't feel like any side is really making any particular headway is because you could look at whether or not you think it's good that gaming is suffering financial losses as a result of this, I guess, is up to your interpretation. But Anita Sarkeesian, and now she made like $400,000 this year. And that's all because of the controversy surrounding Gamergate. Zoe Quinn is one of the top 100 people on Patreon. She's getting like a ton of money. So, I mean, like, their supporters are really motivated. Their base is really motivated now, thanks to Gamergate. So, you know, who you think is winning or losing is really just, I don't think either of them are really making or losing gains. The pro Gamergate side doesn't really have a lot of money on the line. Yeah. But anyway, though, so role-playing. The first time the hero game is so transition into more lighthearted stuff. Role-playing games, though, tabletop RPGs, another one of those demographics where everybody is a fat and neckbeardy. The hero system. When we first tried to set up a game on the hero system, we weren't really sure how things work. The book is actually very thick. It's like the size of a textbook, and a lot of the hero system is rules. Actually, many textbooks or many role-playing books, you'll find that like a huge section of it is fluff, you know, like reading material to get used to the game's world, or they talk about, like, these are the monsters, and these are what the monsters do. The hero system is not that way. The hero system is designed to where you can apply this to any kind of setting that you want to apply it to. And so a lot of the hero system is just designed to set up rules and then explain how the rules work. So there's a textbook worth of rules in the hero system. And but what's really nice about it is that you can kind of design any type of character that you want to build. What we did with this game, we only had a few players that kind of came and went, and there wasn't a lot going on in it, so I think I can explain it all in one episode. But anyway, what we tried to do is we kind of tried to figure out how to build a character and then push the limitations of the game system. And we actually had a game once where we just set out to specifically break the system to see what stuff was really broken and how we might tweak it or keep an eye out for certain things. But in this particular case, because I really liked the game Shadow Hearts, I decided that I wanted to play with a guy who could transform into demons and stuff like this. And I was talking with my friend, and he actually thought that it would be fun to make a game about demon hunting, you know, kind of like ghost hunting. We would just hunt evil spirits and things like that. He thought this would be cool. So I made my character based on Yuri from Shadow Hearts, and so I could transform into demons, which I thought would be pretty neat. There's rules for being able to do that in the hero system. And then we had Sandler, who joined us, and Sandler based himself on Sid from Final Fantasy VII. And so he smoked a cigar and he wore Sid's clothes, and he was basically just Sid. I mean, that was like point blank. And so he developed a materia system where he took a bunch of points and he spent them all on various spells. And he built spells based on the way that spells worked in Final Fantasy VII. This was okay, except for the Demi spell, which Sandler insisted on having at an eventual point. He goes, no, like at first we were like, oh, so it does like 50% of the enemy's health? That seems like it could be a little bit stressful for me as a GM. And then he goes, no, well, what I'll do is I'll use my D100, because Sandler had a 100-sided die that he was in love with. And he's like, what I'll do is I'll roll my D100, and it'll do that percentage of damage to their health. And so my friend who was running the game, he just kind of rolled his eyes and he goes, okay, Sandler, fine, whatever. Because it was our first time playing, and there was actually nothing in the book about how to do percentage-based damage. Because, truthfully, that kind of thing is just broken. There's really no way that you could balance something like that. I mean, take an opponent with, like, I don't know, take like a tank, and how would you balance, like, a tank against a spell that did half of the tank's health and damage or something like that? How would you even represent the damage being done? And eventually, when Sandler first used the Demi spell, I believe he used it. He kept it in his bag of tricks until we got to like the final big boss of the whole thing, and and the GM was just like, I'm not having this, and but we'll get to that. And then we had another friend of mine who played the role of David Bowie, which was a chimp that had been hyper-evolved by super science to become a human, and then he also gained psychic powers through the evolution. So he was like a chimp from the jungle. He was familiar. So I imagine like Mr. Jingles, I think it was, from Saturday Night Live, if any of you guys are familiar with that. Basically, he was just like a guy in a bunch of like torn up red overalls, and he was like a wild, just ridiculous, you know, like he'd run around on all fours. And so that was what David Bowie was. Is David Bowie, when he was a chimp, he was named David Bowie by the researchers. They thought that was funny. And then when he hyper-evolved and gained like psychic powers, he forced them to release him, and he ran off into the wild. I can't really recall who else was there. I believe we had like one friend who kind of showed up and went, and then I had a girlfriend who I was seeing at the time who showed up briefly and then played the role of an angel, and we had broken up at the time, so I think she slept with the friend that was only there temporarily, and then she left, and so something like that, and then, yes, and I don't really remember how exactly we got together either. This game was such a mess, but one thing that we figured out right away is that the transformation powers in the hero system are broken. Because the way it works is that you transform into something, and it costs a fifth of what a character would. So basically, a creature that you transform into can be 5 times stronger than you know, your normal character. And actually, I don't know if the game includes this, but I think the way that you have to balance that basically is you need to have a certain amount of endurance that you can spend. Like, you need to be spending endurance from your character's normal endurance pool to stay transformed, I believe, is how you would have to balance this. Because otherwise, this was just totally broken, as we discovered pretty quickly. The other thing that happened is because the GM allowed Sandler to have his Demi spell, what he would do is he would allow me to take out, like, debts, like point debts. And he could be like, yeah, you can have this monster, you can absorb this monster's soul and turn into it. Just make sure that you don't spend any more points on your character, on your physical character, until you can pay off this monster. And the trouble was that we kept running into various monsters, and I remember a couple of them distinctly. And this is why I say it's going to be a short one, because I really don't remember the thread of the story. I know that there was the Demon Sultan Amon, who was our big bad. This was our big bad. And he was trying to open up gates and get demons into the natural world. And so we kept looking for gates where these demons were coming through, and we'd destroy them, and all the gates were guarded by a demon. I don't really, like I said, I don't really remember a lot of what we did, but I remember one of the better scenes was when we went to a sewer, and it turned out there was an alligator demon living down there. And the gate was dysfunctional. The alligator demon got tired. He was antisocial, and he got tired of other demons coming through the gate. So eventually he just got fed up, and he just broke the thing. So he'd done our job for us. And I remember it turned out that he was really, really nice, and he didn't like living in the sewer. And so instead of killing the gator demon, we actually just talked it out, and then we agreed to help him get out to a swamp somewhere. So we just relocated the gator demon so he could go torment the swamp. We were never very moral heroes in those days. But as I recall, we got lost in the sewer. And we got to a manhole, and none of us had enough strength to lift the manhole. Because manholes, if you're familiar, like, they get paved over all the time. And so if you want to get one open, you need like a sledgehammer, you need to bash the pavement apart and pull the thing up, and so on and so forth. So we were trying to get out. We couldn't remember where we came in, and so we were trying to get the gator out of the thing, and the gator he was like strong, but not strong enough to lift the manhole. So what Bowie did, what wound up happening is we wound up seeing, like, well, how far does Bowie's range work? And so we had to look it up, and we had to look at, like, how far was Bowie's telepathic range. And so he started calling people. He would, like, reach out to just mines. He could sense mines somewhere up above the surface, because we were in a city. And so he would call out to someone's mind, he would reach somebody, tap into them, and then make them walk out into traffic to try to lift up the manhole. And so he did this. It was like, he called out to somebody. He just pulled them out into traffic, but traffic was busy, so they just ran out into traffic to go pick up the manhole, get hit by a car, and then the person would get out of their car, and then Bowie would try to make the person, like, it'd be like, oh my God, what happened? To go help him, and then Bowie would grab that person, and so then, like, he would go, instead of trying to help the person he just hit, this guy who got out of his car would then try to lift up the manhole. And of course that didn't work because you needed tools to get in the manhole. And so, you know, you get like another accident and then that guy would be hit by a car. And so like the car would be parked, so I think that because somebody crashed into the other car, like the car wound up parked on top of the manhole. So we had to get someone to get in the car, to drive the car away, and then we had to move the bodies away from the manhole. And so it just got to be like the police showed up and there was this big, just people kept trying to open up the manhole to let us out. And it became like this big citywide event where there was like a car fire and the firemen would show up to put out the fire and then they all gathered around to try and figure out how to pry open the manhole. This suddenly became their imperative, and so the situation just got worse and worse until eventually we got fed up. It was just like the GM was just screwing with us at this point. It was just like, oh yeah, it just gets catastrophically worse every time you try to summon someone else to get you out of this manhole. And then he goes, also guys, as a hint, the gator may not be quite big enough to fit through the manhole, so you might need to find another drainage exit anyway. So finally we just gave up. We were just like, yeah, okay, fine, forget it. And we found our way out of a giant drainage exit, a big, you know, because he was living in the storm drain, so we found like a storm drain exit that exited into the water, and we helped him find his way to a swamp. And that was our adventure in the sewer. Was we rescued a demon gator, but in the process wiped out a bunch of people trying to get out of the manhole. Man, I can't remember, like I said, I can't remember what all else we did, but I know that later on we went down to the docks, we were following some kind of lead, and we met a vampire who lived in a houseboat. And I can't remember what reason the vampire had for living in the houseboat. I think he just kind of liked, like, vampires can't technically cross running water, but the GM had read a book wherein Dracula put grave dirt. He put dirt in his grave, so that way he could sleep in the grave and be transported over water to the United States, so that Dracula could be in the U.S. for a while. When he wanted to travel, that's what he did. So there was just this vampire that lived in a houseboat, and he had like grave dirt in his boat, so that he could travel around and be comfortable and be sailing. And he just liked to sail. He was a vampire who liked to sail. And I can't even remember what the vampire did that was significant. I just remember that we ran into him, and we talked to him, and it was not useful information whatsoever. At some point, though, we ran into a demon that had the ability to perform light-speed travel. And like some of the other demons, I believe it tried to talk to us, and we chose to kill it. And then I had my character, he stole its soul and then made it one of the things that he could transform into. The thing that was interesting about it was that it was like really highly immune to physical damage. It couldn't be killed by conventional weaponry. You had to use like spells and magic or energy attacks on it. You could set it on fire. That was one way that you could kill it. But it just wouldn't, like, heavy impacts. Like, you could throw a tank at it and the tank would just bounce off. It would ignore it. It was almost immune to any sort of physical attack. We found out, what we did is we had the light speed travel thing. And in the book, there's a great big red flag next to that one. And it goes, stop! Do not allow your players to have light speed travel unless you are perfectly comfortable with the implications therein. And so what I wound up with was a demon I could transform into that had light speed travel. And at some point we found out that Amon was this demon sultan and that he was also a business leader. He was, of course he was rich. He needed lots of money to afford to build all his demon gates all over the city. And I remember this is when things got screwy because we made our lead and then we immediately got distracted because we went to Amon's place of business, and on the first floor there was a receptionist named Sally or something like that. The GM just made a name up off the top of his head. And for whatever reason, the party all decided that we really liked Sally. And it wasn't that Sally did anything. I think it was just because she was really polite with us. You know, she always said please and thank you, and she was just really friendly. And so we started talking to Sally, and then we like got her number, and we spent like probably 2 whole sessions just trying to convince Sally to join our team. Like I remember just the GM, it was just at the end of the session, he's like, okay. He tried to avoid it for a while, but eventually he was just like, okay guys, you know, you convinced Sally. Sally joins the team. Like I don't know what you expect her to do, but like we tried every possible angle. I remember like Bowie tried to implant like subliminal like messages into her brain, but he could only temporarily control her. So so he could get her to like do things that maybe she was reluctant to, and then he could like nudge her towards to be a little less reluctant. I remember my character wasn't very attractive, but I kept trying like charm rolls. I was like, come on, Sally, you know, you wanna hang out with us, right? We're a bunch of handsome dudes. I mean, Sid and David Bowie, the Monkey Man, and me. You know me, I'm pretty great. And so yeah, so after 2 sessions of just constant wheedling and like we were making phone calls to her house, like we introduced ourselves to her parents. Like her parents were over, she was like, no guys, she goes, I can't go out today. My parents are over. So we came over to her house and we were like, hello sir, Sally's parents, we're Sally's friend. And it just got to be like weird. And so finally Sally was like, okay guys, I'll hang out with you. And then we took her to go battle with a demon of some sort. And then Sally was like, oh my god, what's going on? And we were like, Sally, you are the chosen one. We need you. Like, we convinced her that she was the you know, the girl with the hidden magic potential like you get in so many video games or so on and so forth. We were like, we need you, Sally. You gotta be part of the group. And I don't know why it was that we all just decided this NPC was like the single most important thing that we'd ever had in the party. But that's what we decided. And I remember, so eventually we convinced her to quit her job, and it was funny. It was like Amon actually went by the name Amon in his business, so he was Mr. Amon, and I remember Sally, like we were like, Colin, and quit at your job. Amon is an evil demon, and she was like, oh my gosh, and eventually we were able to convince her. So we got Amon's secretary to quit. So he was inconvenienced. He had to find a new secretary, and this was probably the most substantial thing that we wound up ever doing to Amon, because we found out where he worked and we found out what he was doing, and then eventually we just started focusing on petty crap. We started doing like property damage. We were going down with like spray paint. We were like throwing rock. Like he had a car that he drove to work. We like threw a rock through the car window. We just it wasn't at all what my friend with the GM was expecting us to do. He had this plan, like we were gonna unravel his evil plan to like summon hell to earth or something like that. Instead, we were just assholes. So yes, that was a lot of fun. And at one point, basically the GM, he thought that maybe we had a strategy, like maybe we were trying to coax Amon to come to us and reveal his demonic powers. So finally that's what he did, is he was able to track us down, and he sent like demonic assassins to kill us because he got so fed up with our petty vandalism and bullcrap that he had to tip his hand. He was just like, alright, fine, you know, send so-and-so. So he sent like a number of demonic assassins. And we wound up having to kill all these assassins because they were coming to our home and like actually dealing with us. Oh, that's right, now I remember how the party all got together. An angel who had been around for like thousands and thousands of years, and he was a drunk. He'd been trapped on Earth ever since the Garden of Eden had been closed, is what it was. So this angel, he was just like really disgruntled. He didn't really like living on Earth, and so he was a drunk and he was drinking all the time. And that's how he summoned our party. Was that he realized that he needed someone to deal with Amon opening up this gate to hell. And so he just summoned the most powerful humans that he could find within his radius of influence. You know, he just sent out angelic messages to everyone, and he was like, "Meet me at the park at 6 a.m. and I will tell you your destiny," that sort of thing. And so he was just very drunk, and so we would come back and be like, "Yeah, we found out that Amon was the bad guy," and he's like, "All right, so what you guys need to do is," and we'd be like, "Yeah, no. We're just gonna throw rocks at his car." We spray painted a penis on the side of the office building. The security guards gave us trouble, but we were able to run away. But we convinced one of them to hit the other guy with a stick, and they got in a big argument about it. So great diversion there. Yes, I can't remember. I think his name was Bim, because short for like cherubium, cherub. He was a cherub basically, and so his name was Bim. So yes, Bim. I believe that Bim eventually killed himself. Eventually, when he realized that we were probably worse for the city than Amon was, I think he killed himself. Because we just came back one day and Bim was nowhere to be found. And then that was, I think that there was just a message and was just like, couldn't take it anymore, going back to heaven. Something like that. So it was just like Bim just killed himself. Got fed up with us. So, though, I think that finally we made Amon actually come to us. Amon came to us, the GM was just like, if you guys refuse to investigate, if you guys are just going to continue to, like, try to lure his employees away from the company, like, if you're just going to, like, focus on making Amon's life on Earth be the stupidest possible existence, then okay, fine, Amon comes to you. So he came to us at our base location in the park, and that's when Sid revealed his amazing demi powers. Is Sid, he rolls like an 80% on damage. And so, like, the GM had forgotten about this. He forgot that Sandler had designed this character to do this. So he just sighs, and then he goes, okay, both of Amon's arms fall off. And now he looks more pissed than ever. And so his arms just fall right off. And so at this point I transform into a demon. Like, Amon prepares to kill us all, because honestly, we were asking for it, and really, I mean, we hadn't prepared to battle the Demon Sultan at any point. All of our training up to that point was stuff that, like, teenagers could have done. And to be fair, we were teenagers at the time that we were playing this game. We approached authority in the way that teenagers are historically known to approach authority. So we weren't prepared at all for the Demon Sultan. But I had this demon that could travel at light speed and was immune to physical damage. And so I turned to the GM and I go, hey, transform into that demon, fly out into space, and then traveling at light speed, collide with the ocean. And so my friend looks at me, the GM looks at me, and he goes, what? Why? He goes, you know, Amon is right here. What are you doing what are you flying into the ocean? And I was like, no, pay attention. I am like an object of whatever mass. I am flying at light speed into the ocean. I am a physical object with mass, colliding with the ocean at light speed, off the shore of this city. And he goes, oh, you're gonna kill the whole city to fight the Demon Sultan? And I was like, I go, we are way outmatched. It's either the city and Amon, or it's us. And it's gonna be them. It's gonna be the city. So he allows me to do this, and it causes this massive tsunami that wipes out just the whole city, that sinks everything and destroys all the demon gates, and but doesn't kill Amon. Like, Amon is perfectly fine. He just gets out of the way of the water, and then he finds us, and he's just so livid. you know, all of his master plans, like, that was it. That destroyed all the demon gates. I mean, like a giant tsunami. He didn't, sure as hell didn't have flood insurance on the demon gates. I mean, his business is ruined. The secretary is stolen away. I think that he was like, oh yeah, no, she died in the flood. The GM was like, Sally died in the flood, guys. I can't remember how David Bowie survived. I think David Bowie might have died too. Sid had like dragoon powers at this point. I think he was able to jump over the tsunami. Sid was just also stupid. David Bowie died. Sally died. The city died. Everybody died except for Amon. But we saved the day. We defeated the Demon Gate project. They weren't gonna open up a portal to hell on that day. So what Amon did is he just used what was left. He used what he had of his power, and he just teleported us as far away as he could to like the Mojave Desert or something like that. Like he just teleported us both away to the Mojave Desert. And and also he sealed away my character's powers because he didn't want a repeat of like, oh, you could just fly at light speed back to the city. So he took away my powers. So at this point, my guy was just a regular guy. Like without my player's powers to transform, he really had nothing extraordinary about him. He was just like a dude. And so he's just kind of like wandering. He's stuck in the Mojave Desert. But Sid still had his materia, and one of the spells he had was the exit spell, or the warp spell, or whatever it is. So he cast that to just go home to whatever that city was in Final Fantasy VII where Sid lived. Is like, Sandler insisted that this town existed in the world, and that he lived beneath the shadow of a rocket that was about to fall over and crush the whole town. So he just goes. And so at this point, we're pretty much just role-playing with me in the desert. And I believe that our friend who played David Bowie, this was also the same guy who played Grover, actually, by the way, in Children of the Sandler. But our friend who was playing as David Bowie, was just content to kind of like hang around and watch, because it was sort of like getting to be like, are we basically at the end of the game? I mean, we sort of did everything that you had planned for us. I mean, we didn't do everything you had planned for us, but we did destroy everything that you had planned, so the game is ruined, basically. The game's over. And so we fiddled around for a while, and I remember, like, for the last session of the game, what the GM did is he had a guy who was doing, like, a cross-country trek in his van, and he was like a hippie, and so he picked up my character in his van, and he was just, like, this really friendly hippie, and he's like, oh, hey, man, how's it going? You know, you're out here just, like, lost in the woods, I say, or you're just out lost in the Mojave. And he didn't have that accent. He was just, you know, it was one of the, like, whoa, man, you know, I'm trying to think, I'm getting a little bit I'm channeling a bit of Cheech Marin as I do this, but I know that that wasn't the accent. He didn't have the Cheech Marin accent. I just think of this because Cheech and Chong did a lot of the psychedelic adventure stuff, kind of. Not really psychedelic. They just did drugs and got into trouble in their videos, but in their movies. But anyway, though, so he just showed up, and I'll just go with the Cheech Marin. He goes, whoa, man, you know, you're out here in the Mojave. Like, what are you doing out here? And I was just like, oh, well, I sort of lost a fight. I sort of had a stalemate with an apocalyptic demon king, and I'm lost out here. And so the guy's just like, whoa, that's pretty far out. That's pretty heavy. So what are you on, like a spirit adventure or whatever now? And I was like, no, mostly just on a regular adventure, dying of dehydration. And so the guy goes, oh, I got plenty of water. I'm on a spirit adventure. You must be like my spirit companion. So he picks me up, and we start driving along, and so for the whole last session was just my character having arguments with this hippie about like various worldviews. And then at one point we get lost, and like he's like, I don't actually know. He goes, I gotta be honest, I don't actually know where we're going. I've been driving in circles for a while, and I'm worried we're gonna run out of water soon. And I said, well, do you have a compass? And he goes, oh yeah, man, get up in the glove box. So I open up the glove box, and I get out. It's like a protracting compass. You know, one of those things like you put it down and you draw a circle with it. One of those deals. And so I've got the compass, and I'm like, what is this? And he's like, because it's a compass, man. You know, I bought it specifically so I wouldn't get lost. And so we have another argument about the compass. We're like, no, this is not for navigate. And he's like, yeah, it is. You put it on the map, and you turn it, and you can figure out like how far away in distance you are on the map. And so we got in an argument over like how the value of a compass in terms of travel. And then I'm like, no, we need it to find out what direction we're going. And so he goes, oh yeah, I can do that too. So he takes the compass. We stop the van, And he gets out and he goes, "Oh, holy magic compass! Which way is north?" And he throws up the compass, and it lands kind of like a few feet away from us. And he goes, "That way is north." You know, the direction that the compass fell in. And it turned out that we were actually able to find our way back to civilization by consulting with the holy magic compass over and over again. Because it turned out that it actually was a magical artifact that he picked up at a garage sale. Like, he'd picked up a compass that had been used by, like, ancient mariners. You know, it was blessed by a priest and contained the soul of whatever. It was an actual magical artifact. So, that was it. We got to Vegas or wherever it was. You know, we got back to civilization, and the hippie said goodbye, and he gave me the compass as a parting gift. And that was the end of the game, end session. Sid got to go home. I got him holy magic compass. We destroyed the city. That was our big hurrah. This is our treasure. You know, congratulations. Like, the GM had a plan. And there was going to be, like, a big triumph at the end with, like, rewards and stuff like this. But you get the consolation prize, the Holy Magic Compass. It tells you where you're going if you throw it up in the air and you pray to it. So, yes, first ever hero game. Yeah. It was fun, but it was a little bit wacky. Like I said, there were two other players who showed up, but they showed up intermittently. And they mostly used the time to flirt with each other. And like I say, one of them was a girl, and she was an ex-girlfriend, and I believe that she was there to upset me. It was one of those things, like, it was like, let's break up but continue to be friends. And so she showed up, and, like, I had a friend who was there, and so she just, like, was flirting with my friend. And it turned out that she never even really wanted a relationship with him. She was just flirting with him because he was my friend. And I don't know what to say. It was one of those things. It was just, like, really petty. But I don't really call them doing anything. I think that my friend had a power. He could throw grenades. He could throw an infinite number of grenades, and he thought that'd be really good. But he never used it because there were very few situations where throwing infinite numbers of grenades came in handy, in spite of how destructive that we could have been. I mean, he didn't join us in for the vandalism stuff because we often had to leave him at home so that my ex-girlfriend's character could be sleeping with him. It was like one of those things. She played an angel as well, and this was rather silly. What she did is we explained all the stats to her and everything like that, because she showed up and she really didn't want to role play. Like I said, she was an ex. She was there just to kind of cause trouble. So she didn't really want to role play, and so she didn't care very much. And she was just like, "Which one of these stats is beauty?" And we were like, "Oh, this one." So she just took all the character points that she had and she dumped them all into beauty. And then she was like, "Also, I want to fly because I'm an angel." So we explained to her how to get flight according to the game's rules. And so she's like, "Okay, I'm a flying angel and I have all my points in beauty." And that was it. That was her character. And she used it to have sex with my friend's character. And that was her contribution to the game. I can say that Mindy the elf probably contributed a lot more than my ex-girlfriend did. Yes, but anyway though, so interesting game, fun, stupid, a testament to how, if you're gonna GM a game like Hero, the Hero system, it's so open-ended, that if you're gonna run a game like that, you've gotta know the system really well. Because if you don't keep your eye open on it, then people will abuse stuff to no end. You will get all kinds of mess. You will get, like, light speed travel being abused, lots of stuff to get abused. But wacky adventure. But anyway, though, so that's it today. A little bit of politics at the beginning, a little bit of silliness at the end. I suppose I will catch you guys later.